Hey guys, what is going on? This is NGS and welcome to what might be the latest video in the world on this topic. Sit back and relax as I give you guys my thoughts on Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this video really needs no introduction whatsoever. I'm just going to be going over all the films that Marvel announced a couple weeks back. Wow, it's been a couple weeks at this point? God damn, I'm late. And I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts and opinions on what I think about each individual movie. We're just going to go down the list of the films that Marvel confirmed are going to be going on for the next installments of their film universe. Debuting on May 6, 2016, we have the third installment of Captain America, titled Captain America Civil War. In fall of that year, on November 4th, we're going to see the very first appearance of Doctor Strange in the MCU. In May of 2017, the Guardians return in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Followed by that, in July, the 28th to be specific, we have the third installment in the Thor series titled Ragnarok. In November of that year, another newcomer to the universe, Black Panther, is getting his own movie on November 3rd. Following that, into May 4th of 2018, we have part 1 of Avengers Infinity War. And then in July of that year, we have the debut of Captain Marvel. In November of that year, we have the debut of Inhumans, leading up to the finale of Phase 3, May 3rd, 2019, Avengers Infinity War Part 2. So Marvel announced a total of 9 movies from May of 2016, May of 2019, and there is a lot to get excited about with this lineup. We're going to be talking about the ones that I really found the most interesting. First up is Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange has been a movie that I've been kind of mixed about for a while. I mean, they say they've been doing it for a long time, as with any superhero movie out there. They say they're working on it, they got the rights to it, but rarely do we see a lot of them move forward. But Doctor Strange was something that I really wanted Marvel to do because of all the possibilities that it can open up. A lot of the times you've been seeing in the first few Marvel movies, you've been seeing that they've really been grounding a lot of their heroes. They've really just been sticking to more things that are happening on Earth. But when we got to Thor, we started to see sort of the cosmos side of things. And then leading into the Guardians sequel, we saw a lot more of that. But there's really never been too much about the supernatural. So I always said, you know, if they're gonna bring in another element to the MCU, it's gonna have to be Doctor Strange. And that was something that Kevin Feige even mentioned when he was on stage. We've started branching off into these universes, now we need to make another one. So that's why they're doing Doctor Strange. And while I was very hesitant about them going forward with it, the second that I saw who they cast as director for the movie, all of my fears for the most part went away. The director of the Doctor Strange movie is going to be none other than Scott Derrickson. Scott Derrickson, if you guys are unaware, is the director of Deliver Us from Evil. He also worked on The Exorcism of Emily Rose as well as Sinister. This dude has a great track record of the supernatural. He's one director who really, it takes very little for him to get you spooked. You notice a lot of people out there are going for jump scares when they're making their horror movies or things about the supernatural. But with Scott Derrickson, he has a very acute understanding of the supernatural. He really understands what you have to do to really generally instill fear into someone. It does not have to be the same old tired generic thing we've seen time in and time out. That's why I'm very, very excited that they got him to direct this movie. I could not be happier with the direction they're going with this when they have this guy helming the project. As far as the person who's going to be playing Doctor Strange himself, Stephen, we really have no concrete announcement of who's going to be playing the character. I know a lot of people are going to point to Benedict Cumberbatch because he was basically in the running for the role, and considering that Cumberbatch is a really, really popular actor, a lot of people just ran with it like, yeah, he's been cast as Doctor Strange, which he wasn't. We haven't seen an official casting confirmation from Marvel. We haven't seen a confirmation from Scott Derrickson. We haven't seen anything about Cumberbatch being cast as Doctor Strange. It's all just speculatory at this point. Is there a chance he might be Doctor Strange? There is a very high chance. Am I going to be happy with that? To be honest, while I am a big fan of Benedict Cumberbatch, I really don't think he's right for Doctor Strange. I think he's just sort of like the go-to actor everybody wants. You know, they just want to get this really cool British guy to play this character, and more often than not, since this guy's going to be British, oh, we got to add a British character to the MCU, so oh, Doctor Strange, let's just make him British, man. Let's just do that, man. My personal pick for the role of Stephen Strange is Ethan Hawke. I know a lot of people are going to be like, Ethan Hawke? Whoa, dude, what's going on there? But considering this guy and his track record with Derrickson, I really think he would work well in the role of Doctor Strange. But they have not announced who's going to be playing the character, so we're just going to have to wait for them to officially confirm it. But out of all the movies in the MCU, I am very most looking forward to seeing Doctor Strange. Next up, we have Black Panther. This is a movie that's really, out of all the things here that have been teased and hinted at for a while, I think this is the one that has the most concrete foundation. A lot of people involved in the movies have been, you know, tippy-toeing around the subject matter for a while, and then there were the Easter eggs in movies like Captain America, and of course there was Stan Lee not too long ago who was saying that, yeah, we're finally working on the Black Panther movie, it's coming. But with Stan Lee, a lot of you guys gotta know, you have to take some of the things he says with a grain of salt, especially if it's about upcoming Marvel movies. So there was a lot of speculation on it, but we finally have a confirmation that the film is getting done with a pretty awesome concept art of the Black Panther himself. The role of the character has gone to Chadwick Boseman. If you guys are unfamiliar with him, he was in the movie 42. He played Jackie Robinson. He was also in the recent James Brown biopic. He's been in a lot of biopics, I've noticed, but this guy being in the role of Black Panther, I really have no problem with it whatsoever. At first, I thought that the guy looked really young until I looked up his age, and I was like, okay, I'm fine with that. I guess the old saying, black don't crack, really does come up here. But yeah, they really have not revealed too much about the Black Panther movie. For those worried that we might not see the Black Panther until the 2017 release date of his solo film, you might not have to worry about that because of two things. Number one is, I have a feeling that Black Panther is going to have a cameo at the end of Avengers 2. With the way they're leading into that movie and how it's going to affect the universe, I just have this gut feeling we're going to see him in the after credits scene. But also, he's going to have a role in Captain America Civil War. They didn't really specify too much what his character is going to do in it, but he is going to play a part when it comes to the stuff that happens in that movie. But more on that when we talk about Captain America Civil War. Other than that, we have, of course, Captain Marvel. It's really awesome that they're going to do a movie based on this character. I think a lot of people have been interested about seeing a movie based on a female superhero that, you know, didn't suck. But it is good to see that Marvel is branching out and including more diverse heroes into their universe. I'm not the type of guy who says that, oh, we have to include all these people in there, we have to fit all social quotas and agendas, we gotta have a black guy, we gotta have a female, we gotta have a gay guy. I completely hate that entire that thought process of thinking. I just despise that. But it's cool that they're actually gonna add in characters who may have a good role in the universe. That's what I'm looking forward to. Whether or not that will come to fruition, we'll just have to see. They might just use her as an SJW campaign. Who knows? But we're definitely going to have to keep our eye out on that movie. And then next up we have the Inhumans later that year, November 2nd. Again, like Captain Marvel, I'm kind of worried about the Inhumans movie. I mean, I'm excited they're doing it, but I'm just going to go into this one very, very cautious. The concept is great, but there are just some things I'm worried about in that particular thing. But again, more on that later. We have the sequel to Guardians of the Galaxy debuting in May of 2017. Guardians of the Galaxy was definitely a movie that took me by surprise. I loved the freaking crap out of Guardians of the Galaxy. The humor was so on point. It was able to balance a lot of things that we really didn't expect it was going to do. I'm not gonna like overrate it to the levels that people have been doing it, but it is a great movie nonetheless. And the sequel, I want to see more from it. The Guardians was great, it was fun, it was awesome, it was a change of pace for the MCU, but I don't want to see the same thing. I don't want to see just nothing but, you know, laughs and giggles and stuff, because Guardians of the Galaxy, while it was a good movie, it was really kind of lacking in the character development department. It was really kind of lacking in having a good notable villain that they didn't kill off in typical MCU fashion. So I just want to see more out of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 because I really enjoyed the first movie so much. I'm not just going to overrate it and say it's going to be great and awesome because I like the first one. You have to go into these movies thinking, how can they one-up themselves and not be stagnant? But we'll just have to see about Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And then we have Thor Ragnarok. Out of all the people in the universe, Thor is really not one that I'm too fond of in this particular context. The first Thor movie I thought was pretty decent. You know, there were some generic things and plot points they were going for, but I was okay with it. The second movie was definitely a step up from the first, but again, in typical MCU fashion, the villain took a back seat for Loki. You had, what was his name? It escapes me. Malkuth, the guy played by Christopher Eccleston, he was completely underused in that film. And then we just have Loki there because, well, we have to appeal to all the Tom Hiddleston fans. And again, they kill the character. Like, really, we can't have a genuinely good villain in here? And then when there were like some plot holes and things that didn't make sense, inconsistencies, overall better than the first one, but still, why can't we get a good villain that's not Loki? Like, seriously, I don't care if Loki's popular with the plebeians. We need good MCU villains that you don't freaking butcher at the end of the movie. Like, I'm sorry, but I like to see diversity on the bad guy side, alright? Okay. And then we're going to move on to what is probably the biggest part of the universe, the one that's really going to shape things up. I know a lot of you guys think I'm going to be talking about Avengers, but I'm going to give that one a back seat for the time being, and I want to talk about Captain America's Civil War. This is the one that I'm not excited about one bit. Civil War is a storyline that I'm not too fond of at all. I liked the premise of it. I liked that they were introducing friction between the characters because they were tackling a particular topic that was talked about for years. You know, when you have these superheroes who are basically above normal people, they have these powers that can do things normal people can't. They automatically have an edge up over people. How do we know that they are good guys? Sure, they can help us out, but how easy is it for them to turn over to the bad side? It was an interesting concept with the Superhero Registration Act, where all the superheroes, if they wanted to live in normal society, they had to register with their, basically their identity. They had to fork over their identity. They had to fork over their mask. And they had to tell the government who they are. And of course, Captain America was on the opposing side because he's a champion for freedom. And he did not believe that to be freedom. He thought that that was basically controlling things that didn't need to be controlled. Whereas Tony Stark, Iron Man, he was on the side for the government. He was all about making sure everything is controlled and centralized and all of that stuff. And he created friction between all the heroes. It was an interesting story. It was definitely a big story. You know, it was all throughout the Marvel comic universe. A lot of characters played a part in it. But it squandered that potential, especially, it's one of the main reasons why I just generally did not like Iron Man until I saw the movies. Because it's hard for me to say this, but it's true what they did. They essentially made Tony Stark out to be Hitler. And I don't like to use that lightly. But it's true. This is a dude who literally, if you disagreed with his opinion on this matter, he freaking threw you into captivity. This is a dude that was so power hungry. This is a dude that did so many bad things in that arc that it just plummeted his character popularity. And it wasn't until the movies and the general movie-going audience that Iron Man saw a resurgence. Because since Civil War to then, there's been no Iron Man popularity until we got RDJ's performance in the movie. So I'm not too adamant about that story first and foremost, but it's not just that. It's not just the core of Civil War story that's a problem. It's why they're doing this so soon. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, regardless of people's opinions on it, it's still in its early days. A very good friend of mine actually put this into perspective. the Avengers movie is not about the Avengers. There is no Avengers in the Avengers movie. The Avengers movie was just a culmination of all of these guys coming together for one greater good, to stop Loki. It wasn't a select team of heroes that was established to protect planet Earth. It wasn't like that at all. So if we don't really have an Avengers team per se, why are they going forward with this storyline, which involves not just Avengers, but it involves every character in the Marvel Universe? I'm talking about every single Joe Schmo and Mary Sue. It involves so many characters in there. It involves Punisher. It involves the Fantastic Four. It involves Spider-Man. So why are you introducing this so early on when you don't have characters? Like, this universe is still not developed to the point where we have so many characters that we can draw from, where this is going to be a big impact. Everybody in the MCU, for the most part, everybody knows their identity. Everybody knows their identity. So what do we have to fear about registering with the government? Like, there are no caped crusaders, mass vigilantes who nobody knows. There aren't. So why are we going forward with this storyline, which is what the foundation was for? I don't understand that one bit. I really don't, and that's my biggest problem. They're just throwing away what they had planned to appeal to this really popular storyline. And this is where I'm really calling in Robert Downey Jr. and Kevin Feige's integrity. Because originally, Captain America 3 was going to be more about the search for Bucky. Because after all the stuff that happened at the end of Winter Soldier, you're like, oh man, stuff is about to get serious. But no, we go into having Robert Downey Jr. as a cameo, to him wanting a bigger role. Because in RDJ's own words, you can look this up, why put Iron Man in a movie if he's not going to have that big of a role? He wanted to be a major player. He wanted to play with the big boys. And that's just infuriating, because the entire point of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was to not only introduce characters in a good way, but to have them show up in the other films as just characters. Not as, you know, star players, not as someone who's going to have a major role in this movie. No, one of the great things about the comics is you would have these characters just come in, be in a couple pages, go. That's it. But not in Hollywood. If you're going to be in this movie, nah, you have to be a major player. And that's what's going on with Civil War. That's why they're doing it. It's all about Robert Downey Jr. and that Iron Man greed. And I'm not for this 100%. I don't like the concept they're going for. I don't like the entire foundation of this. Granted, I will give the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the story of Civil War, because you can make this story interesting. The concept is interesting. And if they aren't going to go the comic route of it, maybe at the very end it'll be somewhat passable, but from what they're going for right now, you know, RDJ's greed, the fact that the story is nowhere near developed to the point where a Superhero Registration Act will ever be a thing, I'm just not for this movie at all. I really am not. I know I'm probably going to get a crap ton of hate for that, but hey man, it's got to be said. It's got to be said. Let's move on to the final two movies, Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and Avengers Infinity War Part 2. I'm somewhat excited for both of these movies, even though they're not for 4+ years. If you look at it like that, Avengers Infinity War Part 2, which is where this all ends, I will be close to 26 years old. I will be 25 turning 26. That's just crazy to think about at this point. I definitely did think that we were going to see Thanos in Part 3 of the Avengers universe. I think that introducing him in the second part is a bit too soon, and it's going to kind of kill all the hype and all the buzz. Now, we don't know much about Avengers Infinity War other than the fact that Thanos is probably going to be the main villain of the movie, and it's split into 2 parts. There was a little teaser that showed that he'd acquired all of the stones that were spread across the movies, so that's definitely something that could play a big part, but the fact that it's being split into 2 movies was something that I didn't think they had the balls to do. I thought that with Marvel, they just wanted to build everything up to just one movie, but seeing as how you've had success with movies like Harry Potter and Twilight and Hunger Games, where you're splitting up the movies into multiple parts, it makes sense for that. This is interesting because since you're building up an entire universe, you could potentially have 2 parts of the movies with two completely separate teams. I mean, you could probably have part one feature the Guardians and such, and then part two will be like the culmination of everybody when they fight Thanos on Earth or something crazy like that. I mean, there's a lot of potential in this movie for like just the spectacle of it, storytelling, just closing all the loose ends that were in the other movies. I mean, it's really fascinating. I know it's getting me all geeked up. I know, like, out of all the movies, I'm really hyped for Doctor Strange and Black Panther, but this is where everything, it's because there's just a lot of things they could do with it. Like, man, like literally a two-part epic for superhero movies. You don't see that. You really don't. But like I said, we'll just have to wait and see on that, as well as all the other movies. Out of all of the movies here, I think we're safe with Doctor Strange, and I think we're going to be good with Guardians of the Galaxy 2. The other ones, like Thor, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and Inhumans, we're just going to have to wait to see how good they are. I'm glad they're doing a Black Panther movie, but again, I'm going to reserve my judgment till it's out. Captain America is the one where I think there's enough that we know where it's kind of like, it's going to be hit or miss. Either it's going to adapt the story in a very different way for the comics where they take out all the annoying stuff. Again, they're probably going to take the very core of it and adapt it. And in the very core is something that does not make sense in this universe. That's the depressing part of all of this. And it was very interesting that they didn't include Ant-Man in the lineup for Phase 3. We already know that Ant-Man is a movie and it's going to start Phase 3. It would have been nice to see the character in there. I'm not too anticipated about that movie in particular. I'm definitely going to do a video on that later. I mean, come on, you could have said that, yeah, we also have Ant-Man to start things off or something. I mean, that movie's coming out after Avengers 2 sometime next year. Really? Not even a showcase to say, hey, you know, the movie is still alive. It's not in development hell after the debacles that have happened. Like, we really have not seen nothing on that movie, and it's been in development for almost 10 years at this point. That's ridiculous. But yeah, you guys, those were my full, unfiltered, rambling thoughts on Phase 3 of the MCU. Post your comments down below what you thought about this. I'm NGS signing out, and like always, I will catch you guys later. Peace. The Sorcerer Supreme!